with Leah. I really appreciate you being my guest today. Uh, Before we get started, if you are watching live on LinkedIn, please go ahead and hit the like button below and drop us a comment in the comment section and let me know where you're logging in from. And please welcome my guest, Gwen Chambers. So,
Hello.
hi, Gwen. Thank you so much. So, today we're going to be having a conversation about the human part of HR. And I want to just make sure that we're live on LinkedIn before we get going. The team usually lets us know when we're good to. If you give me the update, I will get going. We are live. Wonderful. Okay. So I want to introduce my wonderful guest today. Gwen Chambers joins us as the owner and chief strategic HR business partner of Chambers HR Consulting Group based here in Houston, Texas. Among the many services that are offered, her group provides just-in-time leadership to organizations big and small. Gwen has a deep passion for people and is constantly studying the human side of business and business culture. As a certified human resources business partner and coach, she is on a mission to elevate the human experience in the workplace through love. So welcome. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being my guest.
The pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. If you're just joining us here on LinkedIn, I am refreshing the chat, and I will make sure that I can see everything. And if I don't see one of your comments, my team on the back end that is doing the production will let me know. So, Gwen, thank you again for joining me. I wanted to start off today before we get into the full conversation and me asking you more questions. I wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and give a little bit more background about yourself to the audience.
Well, I think you've pretty much summed it up in the introduction, but if I can just add a little bit more flavor to that, I am fairly new to the Texas market, grew up in California. So, the recent weathers that we had recently was something new that I've never experienced before. As you've mentioned in the introduction, I am very passionate about people. And I know that there is a direct connection between people's performance and the culture in which they perform their work. And so that is something that I really am passionate about. I want to learn more about. I would like organizations to put a brighter spotlight on culture. And that's one of the reasons why, I do what I do.
That's wonderful. No, so well, thank you. And I wanted to preface this with Gwen has many years of experience in the HR space, and so I think it shows so much value that you've had some different positions in different organizations, and now you're doing a lot more consulting work, but you also provide what you refer to as just-in-time leadership, and you do some interim roles, and you're currently in an interim role here in Texas providing that HR leadership. Did you want to tell the audience about that role at all?
Well, currently I'm physically here in Texas, but I'm working remotely for an organization that's based in Ohio. Bon Secours Mercy Health is the 5th largest Catholic healthcare system in the world. And I'm currently serving as the HR director for the medical groups in both Richmond and Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
that position requires, a lot of hands-on learning and, providing services, not to only the associates there, but also to the leadership and management teams.
Okay. No, and why I wanted to ask is because one of my questions is, what is your current work setup? You're on this LinkedIn show with me, and I
Right.
know that you're at your home, but if you're going into the office at all, if you're doing some kind of hybrid, but so you are fully remote right now?
Fully remote. I started with them about a year ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to find my way back home from Virginia to Texas about a year ago, and I couldn't get a flight out. So I had to actually drive from Virginia to Washington, D.C. to actually get home. And that was when the COVID, pandemic started.
Right.
And just the travel was just, very disruptive at the time. So I've been here for over a year now, working from my home. I have an office space upstairs and with a beautiful view outside. So, it works for me. I really enjoy it.
That's good to hear. I know we've been home for a year too. March 17th marks 1 year of working from home.
Wow.
There have been countless interruptions from, Amazon deliveries, the mailman, my dog's barking, people
Right.
doing their yards,
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I wanted to highlight today, because we're talking about the human part of HR, is it's such a new perspective because I am literally looking into your home right now. I obviously have a green screen behind me, but if I moved it, you would just see bookshelves full of stuff. And it's it is a whole new level of human interaction,
It
but
is.
but it's through a screen. So it's a very complex way that we're communicating and interacting. So I think it's important to set the stage that you and I are both in our homes right now, and we're
Right.
going to be talking about how humans work in this space in HR. So I know that this year has been really tough, and like you said, you've been working from home for a year. But is there anything just spectacular, fantastic, wonderful that has stood out to you this past year that's happened to you personally or in your family or in your work? Just like the biggest win that you've had.
Wow, that's a loaded question. And the first thing that kind of came to my mind, and that's kind of what I tried to do, was, what's the first thing that kind of comes to mind?
Mhm.
And for me, it was deepening relationships. And that
Okay.
may sound counterintuitive. Um, on the one hand, I like that human touch, that human interaction face to face.
Mhm.
And I've really, worked hard to try to develop relationships with the people that I work with, in Virginia. And I have found that, working on Zoom and in Teams and, some of the other digital platforms out there, that, you can develop those deep relationships. And sometimes I think, even though you're seeing the person and you can see their eyes and they can see your eyes, sometimes just the distance, just, not being physically there, some people open up more. They feel like that threat maybe is not there. And that, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, everybody is a little bit different. But from my standpoint, I enjoy having, meetings online and, looking at a camera and looking at other people and seeing them in their homes, like you mentioned. Some people are very, shy about that. They're very private. They don't want people to see inside of their homes. But I think you learn a lot about people, the way they
Right.
decorate, the things that they have on their bookshelves. I mean, of course, you have to, kind of make sure you've got appropriate stuff sitting up there.
Right.
But even like on the news, when I'm watching the news and pretty much it's all on Zoom, and I'm
Uh-huh.
looking in people's home and seeing what do they have on their bookshelf, who do they have pictures of, what are the titles of their books. I mean, I look at all those things, and I really feel that you get to know people a little bit at a deeper level. So that's
I
probably my richest experience.
Okay. No, I really appreciate that because I actually do the same thing on news. I'm like, ooh, I really like how they have that set up. I might
Yeah,
try that,
yeah,
mixing in the plants on their bookshelves. I like that idea.
yeah.
But for somebody like me that doesn't have as much of an issue with people seeing into my life, for people that are deeply personal or that, like you said, are very hesitant, I can imagine that this time where day in and day out, people are basically intrusive in your home and how much of an impact that has on employees. Have you dealt with that at all? Have you dealt with people that want to be camera off, that want to be just strictly like against a white wall and just professional? And how do you get past that, or how do you make that human connection with somebody that you can't look at? I mean, you can't touch, you can't have a cup of coffee with in person. How,
Right.
how do you get past that impasse of we're thousands of miles away, or we could be 10 miles away, but we're behind a screen?
For me, it's getting to know them a little bit better, maybe having off camera conversations, on the telephone, through email, through text messages, and just getting to know them as people, you know,
Okay.
and having them share as much as they're comfortable sharing. Um, in HR, the people that I deal with, a lot of them are in HR. So for the most part, they're pretty open about, showing up on camera. I know that we have, some of our leaders that when they, send their meeting invites out, they say, I prefer to have everybody, on camera. And I think it's not so much to be intrusive. I think it's also a way for us to connect with people to make sure that they're okay. If you've never seen people, you don't know, what they're going through. You don't know, physically what they might be experiencing. And sometimes when someone is always off camera, you tend to wonder, how are they doing? What's going on? But if you can see someone, it takes a little bit of that away. Not to say that because I look a certain way on camera that I'm smiling, so I must be happy. No, but for some people, they can take some cues, some verbal cues to know that she was on camera, but she really didn't speak up. And usually she's very bubbly. So people, if you get the chance to really know someone, you can tell, if there's something going on in their life or something that they're dealing with.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think those are all great points. And I noticed that this year I've spent a lot more time fostering those relationships and
yes,
those off Zoom, maybe on the phone, like you said, or text messages, just like check-ins,
right.
because we all do get exhausted. We all do get exhausted being in front of a camera, and
Yeah.
it's so much different than being in an office, yet it's necessary. And I've noticed that I've done a lot of things like just send a quick text message towards the end of the day or at the end of the week or the beginning of the week and just, hey, just checking in. We've
Right.
sent a lot of like coffee gift cards, like, hey, I
Oh,
can't have coffee with you, but have one on me, right? And
that's nice.
I had a team member that was really struggling and she doesn't drink coffee. So I sent her tea, right? And
Okay.
and those kind of things, like knowing those things about individuals that you work with and their points where life can be really hard and it's been very hard, and bringing
Yeah.
those human elements in has been very key, but I've noticed it has taken more time, and I'm a lot more intentional about it now.
Yeah.
Um, kind of slowing down and like, okay, I have to put this on my calendar even, even if I
Right.
have to 15 minutes a day, just but I've noticed it does take a lot more of my time. I'm not mad about that. I actually enjoy it quite a bit. Um, but so this is the point of the conversation where I want you to tell everybody that's watching, and we have a bunch of people on LinkedIn, and I'm going to get to the hellos and the thank yous for joining. But let's set it up where you tell us all about what love is in the HR and business world.
Well, you know what? Love means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And right now, I think because it's such a new time for us to really even say love in the workplace that I've kind of taken a step back just to kind of gradually ease people into it. I mean, all
Okay.
of us know what love is. I mean, love
Right.
is a feeling. Love is something that can be described in so many different ways. And the love that I'm speaking of is more of the brotherly love,
Okay.
having that teamwork, caring for one another. But not to really just throw it out there. I've come up with an acronym, LOVE,
Right.
and stands for, all the essential ingredients that you need to have an inclusive workforce. And that would be leadership for the L, ownership is the O, values, and then effort. And we're looking for that discretionary effort from the employees, when they are, working within a corporation or an organization. So that's what love means. And of course, each of those 4 different areas have, huge research behind them, and they mean so many different things. I mean, when you Google leadership, there's probably trillions of responses that come up.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Books
So
and articles and classes, and I mean, you can even get masters in certain types of leadership,
right, right, right.
educational leadership, business leadership. So I love it. So it's L is leadership, O
Correct.
is ownership,
Ownership.
V is values, and E is effort. So
Right.
Joanne or Rawlis, I know that you guys are on the other side watching and doing comments. Can you put that in the comments so everybody that is engaged today and can see it so that they can maybe copy and paste it and save that? Because I think it's important. I like that you use acronyms. I also do that a lot. I've used that method all throughout my academic career and my professional career because I want to remember things. And so
Yeah,
and I feel like the acronym that you came up with is so loaded too, because love is a tender, affectionate feeling, and and the work that we're doing, you have to bring that brotherly love to work,
right.
and I think it's such a very neat acronym that you put together for
Well,
leadership,
thank you.
ownership, values, and effort, because those are all incredible key components in what it takes to
Right.
have this type of a workplace.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think about a lot is nobody knew how to do this before, right? Like this is brand new for all of us. So thank you for people like you who come up with ways to help us shepherd through this. We need leadership, we need ownership and values and effort throughout this phase. Before COVID is BC, and now, at some point we'll get to AC,
Uh-huh.
because our BC life was so different. It was just there's no comparison anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I mean, as bad as the pandemic is, I think there's been a lot of good that has come out of it, and that's what I
Okay.
try to focus on. So
Right. And
I
for
agree.
your personal career or for what you've seen in the past year in your position, can you give me one or two examples of some of the good things that have come from us experiencing the COVID pandemic?
Well, one would be something that we talked about a little bit earlier. It's just that deepening of the relationships, getting to know people at a different level. I think the other thing that is really exciting for me, because one of my strong values is, always evolving and learning and growing. People have, kind of woken up and saying, hey, I need to really learn this digital stuff. I really need to learn,
Yes.
Excel. I need to learn all these things because, you know, pre-COVID, I think people were kind of just in this little rhythm. They're just kind of going along and just knew that the next day was going to offer the same thing that yesterday offered. And they just kind of became complacent
Okay.
until, the pandemic hit. And, some corporations, some organizations, had to start cutting back, laying off people. And they found themselves in a place of uncertainty. And, well, now what do I do? These ads that I'm, looking at, they require you to have certain skill sets, and I don't have them. So the associates, I think, are learning that they need to continue to evolve and learn and grow. And so I think that has been another positive side to the pandemic, is that it's given people time to pause. And I'm not saying that it was good that people lost their jobs,
Right.
but I think it was a good point where they can say, thank you. I mean, we did have unemployment insurance that, stepped up and they increased that. So, some people were taken care of. I mean, not to the extent that they obviously were accustomed to, but I think it was a good time. And, not everybody looks at it that way. People looked at the pandemic as being bad and this is what it's done to me, and taking more of the victim role. But I think for the most part, these people that I have spoken to, they
Mhm.
have looked at it as an eye opener. And so I would say that would be the positive.
I would agree with you. And, it's so hard because this has been an extremely difficult year for so many people. I've lost people in my family, and I've lost friends, and
Mm,
there's so many difficult aspects of the way our lives have changed, the way that healthcare has been given to people, or to not be given to people, or people
yeah,
have lost their jobs, and there's
yeah,
so many human elements and so much suffering from what we're experiencing. But there's also some incredible advances. We have
right.
moved leaps and bounds. I was reading something last week that a lot of the new digital technology and the work technology that we're using right now wasn't really forecasted for like maybe 10 years from now.
Yeah,
We have moved forward in this digital transformation of the workplace by 6 to 10 years. We're there. And
right.
there is exciting things happening. There are positive things happening. one of the digital transformations that I think has been so beneficial to society is using the telehealth portals.
Right.
There was a really slow adoption of that before, in the BC times, in
Exactly.
our pre-COVID
Exactly.
times, and now people are comfortable with it, and hopefully that um, will grow into a system where more people have access to healthcare.
Exactly.
And so it is so hard. It is so hard to balance that. Like, this has been hard, but there's really good things that have come from this.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing those up, because I think you're right. And I think that I know a lot of individuals have tried to gain new skills. What have you seen organizations do to provide that type of training or upskilling uh, in in helping employees move forward during this pandemic?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is more. It's not so much the learning piece from an academic standpoint, but just learning about yourself and
Okay.
providing more mental health resources, providing different apps to help people to meditate, to really get
Mhm.
to know who they are as a person. And that's one of the things that Bon Support Mercy has done quite robustly is, making sure that they call them associates. They're not employees. They call them
Okay.
associates, that they are very well taken care of in, in the practice. Everyone having equal access to all of these different benefits that the company so richly provides. In terms of the academic side, for the folks that are, still remain at the hospitals and in the practices, that, we go out there and we promote the tuition reimbursement programs that are offered out there.
That's
We provide,
wonderful.
yeah, we provide CEUs. I mean, we're really reaching out to people to find out what they need and trying to fill that need. And we can't be all things to all people, but I think for the most part, making sure that their pay is right. Bon Support Mercy Health has done tremendous work around providing additional resources. They have said that we want all of our hospitals to be at a minimum of $15 an hour, period. So we're moving towards that. They've taken people that are maybe below the minimum of their pay range and put them up to the pay range. I mean, they've
Mhm.
done a lot of exciting things. And in this time, you think that there's no monies available. And I'm not saying that corporations are flush with money, but the smart organizations, they're looking for and they're finding ways to provide monetary resources to their
Mhm.
associates, because that's really what is needed during this time of uncertainty, when people are feeling like the world's coming to an end. Going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very, very bottom of your needs is just having basic water, shelter, things like that. So we want to
Correct.
make sure that we take care of those needs first, because we can't expect people to come into the workplace and do extraordinary work when they're feeling like they can't put the next
Right.
meal on the table.
Right.
So yeah.
No, I think that that's so important, because we're talking about the human side of HR, right?
Right. Right.
And I think that you're with an organization right now, and you're in a leadership position where you have actually been able to put your money where your mouth is. And
Exactly.
that's a weird term, but you have been able to be people first, human
Right.
first. And even the way I was going to ask you, is like, associates, you use that term, but then you explained it to me, and it is such a people first term. You
It
know,
is.
they're
It is.
not, because employee for a lot of people harkens back to a time where there's a master employee, or
That.
it has negative connotation for a lot of
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And I love that you use the term associate, because it's such inclusive language, and it's such people first people powerful type of language. So
Right.
I am super impressed with what you're doing. And I think that it speaks volumes to, your type of leadership in HR. So I think that anybody that's watching right now, and I see that there's quite a few of you, I hope that you guys have some questions for Gwen that I can ask her as well, because she clearly is just incredibly knowledgeable in the area of HR, and especially on bringing the human aspect back to HR. So in that vein, so in the O of your LOVE acronym, when you talk about ownership, are you talking about ownership only like at your most senior levels, or ownership throughout your organization?
Absolutely throughout the organization. I kind of reflecting back on my HR journey,
Mhm.
and from the very, very, uh, early years when I was in HR, I always felt like I was out of place. I always thought that, and when I got into it, was called personnel, and I always thought it was about the human side of people. And when I got into some of these organizations, it was like, no, it's
Mhm.
not. It was all about rules and regulations and profits, and I just thought, wow, I'm in the wrong business here. So I've always had that thinking that it's all of us, unless we all work together, there's not going to be a business. So, when I say ownership, of course, there's, the business itself, the owners of the business and or the board of directors, or, whoever it is. So you got the leadership, but then you also have the people that are working within the organization. And there needs to be ownership all the way through in order for that organization to thrive.
Okay. And a lot of that makes a lot of sense. And I think that um, as leaders, we ask employees to also take ownership over projects, over
Right.
their work, and it creates a sense of belonging and inclusiveness, and more holistic type of work where you're not just, turning a knob. Involvement is key, and it is determinative of your success and the success of the organization. And I think that owning the process, and owning part of the company in whatever way, shape, or form that you can, is so important to have like that human aspect back in the business.
Yes, you're absolutely
So
right.
um I'm trying to pull up the comments, and I'm having the worst time ever. Okay, I got some. Finally, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be distracted, and I'm so sorry about that. So we have a question here about, what about human resources keeps you inspired and working in the field?
Well, first off, and maybe this is not even answering the question, and I apologize, but
No, it's
you
okay.
know, the whole word human resources, to me, it just always evokes not a
Negativity.
touchy-feely, happy kind of a place. So
Uh,
for me, HR stands for Hope Resurrected. And I really think that's what we in human resources are there to do, is to resurrect hope in people, all people,
okay.
whether it be the associates, whether it be the leadership, whether it be the patients, everyone that you come in contact with in the workplace. All of us want, to hold on to some kind of hope. I think it was what Napoleon Bonaparte that said, leaders are dealers in hope. I mean, that's really
Yes.
what, yeah, that's really what we're there for. And so for me, that's what keeps me in the field of HR, is knowing that there's people out there who are suffering, and people that need hope and inspiration, and to know that it's okay to show up as yourself. And I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with. At least when I was coming up in the work world, it's like, you know what, leave your personal problems outside, don't bring them in the workplace. And people were living this life of, I can't be me. And I think we're
Right.
slowly but surely starting to turn that. And to me, that's very exciting. So that keeps me engaged working in HR.
So hope resurrected.
Hope
Okay.
resurrected. That's what HR is all
That's
about.
impressive. And I come from a school where HR is far more process oriented, is far more there to be a legal gatekeeper for the organization, rather than your business partner. And I have always thought that there needed to be like two branches of HR, and basically, and I know it would inherently be kind of a divisive type of idea, but it's very hard. There's a duality to HR business partners and HR in general. On one hand, you're there to serve your associates and to be
Right.
supportive and to offer hope and
Right.
offer guidance. And you're there for the things that that matter the most to the organization, and that's making sure that the people have the things that they need, that
Right.
they're in the right places, that they have the resources they need, that they have the right education, they have the right training. But you're also there, you have this other part of HR that's there to protect the organization.
Right.
And they're very opposing type of views. In one corner you have, we're here to be your best friend and to help you through these hard times because you're a valued asset of this organization. And then on this side, it's like, well, this is this policy, and because of these laws, we can only say this. And there's such opposing, like very in contrast,
Right. Right.
types of work. And I've always wondered if it would behoove organizations to just separate those, just separate them out. Don't make all of those things be under your one HR roof, right?
Hmm.
Separate them out. Is that something that you've ever struggled with in an HR position, being quote unquote both the good guy and the bad guy?
I don't know if I would use the word struggle, but
Okay.
that obviously has, been something that I've had to deal with when you're having to, terminate someone.
Right.
Obviously, that's going to have a devastating effect on the person generally. But then I've also come to the realization that a lot of times employees or associates, they end up terminating themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So that for me kind of helps me go through that. You brought up the point about separating the two. And I guess for me, it's about equity, equality, inclusion. So I'm trying to bring everything together. And I
Right.
really never thought about, separating them.
There's a study and
Yeah.
research and maybe write a scholarly paper on it and like propose it to academia. But it's something that when I came into this field, and I came into this field from the legal world, seeing these two opposing positions that had to be housed within often the same individual. You're the
Right.
HR business partner, and you have to sign people up for their benefits and help them through possibly their FMLA, or get them resources for their employee resource groups, or help them with really personal life altering decisions. But then you also have to be the person that says, you can't do this, no, that's not allowed, or you're no longer a member of this organization. And I think that we put so much on one individual or one department. It's just something I've thought about quite a bit, and I just wanted to know your idea about it. So we can move on from that, because I want to know about what type of values you think are most important in HR and business, and then how those leaders use the values to make sure that their organization is actually representative of what their goals are.
That's a great question. And, right before you said that, you said we're going to leave the other subject, but really we're not leaving it, because that's
Okay.
how we get to bring people together, is through our values.
Okay.
So if you have the right values and we're all working towards the same mission, we should all be able to work together.
Okay.
Okay. So in terms of values, I have my own personal values, and I use those as I go through my work life, my personal life. And actually, I have another acronym. It's choices.
Okay.
Okay. And so the C stands for compassion. So I have a value, compassion. H is for humility.
Okay.
O is for optimism. I is for integrity. C is for courage. E is for excellence. and S is for selfless. So if I can use those values in how I show up in the workplace or how I show up in life, I think I can do a lot of powerful things. And I think if organizations can do the same thing, have the same values or similar values, then they can go a long way as well. And
I
so,
I
go
am
ahead.
just like in awe of you right now. Okay. I love acronyms and this acronym is phenomenal. I mean, so choices and
Choices.
it's another one of like your double meaning type of acronyms because so you have your compassion, your humility, integrity. Um,
Your
what was your
optimism, your courage.
optimism,
You got to have
courage?
courage. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you have optimism and courage, and then the
E is for excellence, just
excellence.
having a standard of excellence. You're not going to
Okay.
achieve it every day, but have that standard.
Okay. And S,
Is selfless.
selfless.
You're doing it
Wow.
for others. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think when you're
Okay.
doing it for others, you end up doing it for yourself because we're all connected.
Right. And that I mean that's so impressive that you just did that. And I hope that Joanne caught those and can put them out there, for your choices acronym because I think that is so important. And I really appreciate the way that you explain these because I think it's important for people to understand the values. Every organization is going to have different values, and like you
Right.
said, you have your own personal values. And one of the biggest things in finding a new job or in talent acquisition, if you're a recruiter, is making sure that the values of the organization are actually aligned with the values of the individual. Because I think
Absolutely.
you get into a lot of people problems and HR problems when your values are very misaligned.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just not a good fit for a specific organization or, that organization's not a fit for me because there's just not that value there that I want to work for, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, so hopefully I'm gonna check the messages here and hopefully they got those in there because that was an awesome acronym.
Thank you.
Have you ever done a TED Talk?
I have not done a TED
You
Talk.
need to apply to do a TED Talk to talk
Really?
about your choices acronym. I'm not kidding. That is so impressive and it's so succinct and easy to understand. So I encourage you to do that.
Well, okay. I'll take that away.
Yeah.
Consider
Okay.
it.
So Rollis just asked, he mentioned some people are afraid to take ownership because if it doesn't work out, their status or job may be in jeopardy. What would you say to someone who has that?
Wow. That is a great question. And, I think it really depends on obviously the person and then the organization that they're in. There's some organizations out there that value risk taking. And
Right.
if that's an organization who says, we're all about innovation, we're all about this, we're all about that, you can test them by doing something and seeing what the outcome is. Am I getting fired because I took a risk and I did this? Or they're saying, wow, that was a great first start. You're being innovative. You're walking the talk. And it didn't work out, but that's okay. Let's kind of peel back the situation and see, what we can learn from that.
Okay.
In terms of Rawls's question, how would a person, be able to be open up and to take risks? I really think it depends on the relationship they have with their manager.
Hmm.
And this is something that's very difficult because we have seen the outcomes of people who have taken a risk or who have done something or said something, and the outcome that they're on the other side of it, whether it be termination, whether it be a written warning, whether it be whatever it is, ridicule. It could be a lot of different things. But I think it goes back to the person and really understanding who you are and what you stand for. And you're not going to go out there and make a big bonehead mistake on purpose. I mean, at least I hope you don't. But if you really have a great idea, you go to your manager, talk to your manager about, I know we're having this difficulty with, patients who are, canceling at the last minute. I came up with an idea that we can do X, Y, and Z. Would you support me in, rolling it out or, at least testing it? And go to your manager and get their buy-in before you actually go out and do that thing. But I think have the courage enough to stand up and say, this is a problem and I want to be a part of the solution. So, how can we together, work on this? And I think it's involving your manager. And sometimes, managers are part of the problem.
That's a
That's
a whole other topic. Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I think that was a great answer for, a difficult question. It is hard to, I think it's one thing for leaders to take ownership because that's what it's expected. But in your instance, having associates take ownership of certain projects or ideas, or trying something new, being innovative, it can be risky. But I think you're right. It goes with the culture of the organization. Is that an acceptable risk? And then also the communication and the openness between, and the transparency between your associates and their managers.
Right.
If they're not comfortable even coming up and saying, hey, I want to own this process, this is what I'm thinking, then
Right.
you've got like definitely a people problem there, and maybe, a process problem, an operations problem. But you want to strive to have an organization where your people that are involved in the organization, all of the people there can own different parts of the process of the operation. So moving into the effort stage of your LOVE, what do you mean specifically about efforts in the LOVE acronym? What do you see as the effort portion of this?
Effort for me, and again, this whole love is for all parties. It's not just for leaders. It's not just for associates. It's not just for, vendors. It's everyone. And in order for something to happen, for work to take place, you have to put effort into it. Some people, give a little effort, when they answer the phone, hello, this is Gwen, can I help you? Yeah. Or, you put a smile in your voice and you say, hello, this is Gwen, I can help you. It's effort. It's what effort that you're putting out.
Right.
And so I think when you take care of the whole person, they will show up and they will give you that discretionary effort, going that extra mile for you. And that's something I think corporations really need, especially when, they, can't afford to hire, 10 people to do the job, but maybe they can hire 8 people to do the job. That means that someone's going to have to work a little bit harder. So, when you're creating a workforce or a workplace where is, in alignment with people, you're going to get more effort or better effort out of your people.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I just wanted to understand fully before, I asked any more questions about it, about specifically what you meant by and people effort, no matter what rung of the organization you're in,
right.
Where you're at in the organization, it definitely takes effort to be intentional about being people first,
right.
about being inclusive as well. And I think I think you very well summed that up. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, so you have a lot of experience in HR and you have done really cool jobs all over the United States with different organizations. But are there any topics outside of HR that you could just give a 20-minute presentation on without any preparation? And I'm not asking you to do it, but what's something that you just could give me a whole TED Talk on right now?
Would probably have to be wine.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more.
I've got 2 passions, people and wine. And I don't mean like, sloppy drunk kind of wine.
Right.
To me, wine is a living thing. It's like a person.
Okay.
It's
Do you have any wine acronyms? Because that would make my day. I would really love it if you had a wine acronym right now. But if you don't, it's okay.
I do have them written down somewhere. I don't remember what they are.
Okay.
What I want to do, though, is to be able to write a book about leadership using wine as the metaphor.
Oh.
And it's just like, it's like, you know what, at first it was like, well, they're not ready for love in the workplace. I mean, how am I going to do wine in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still working on that.
Okay.
But yeah, probably wine would probably be that subject that I could just talk about on and on, on and on, on and on. There's so many
Really?
similarities to people. You know, when you talk about culture in a workplace, you got to cultivate the soil, right? For wine, in order to grow, you've got to have the terroir, which is really the culture of an organization. There's so many parallels there that, yeah.
That's impressive. So what is your, and I think that this is like a misnomer to ask somebody what their favorite wine is. What's your favorite wine with a red meat?
Wow. All depends on how it's going to be seasoned. I mean, there's so many ways to answer that question. The first thing I think would probably come to a lot of people's mind is, Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
if you're going to do it like in maybe in a Colombian spices or something, I would probably go with a Malbec or a Syrah. Just kind of depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what would be your wine of choice with a more, with a poultry dish?
Well, if it was more on the buttery side, I'd probably go with the Chardonnay. But if it was
Okay.
more of a crisp, I'd probably go with a Viognier or maybe Sauvignon Blanc, again, depending on how it's seasoned.
Okay. So do you have an overall, like your go-to, this is the wine that I just love, no matter the situation, no matter the food? Do you have any like absolute favorite wine?
God, that's a hard question. Let's go back to HR. No,
Okay.
I'm kidding. No,
HR is
I'm
way
kidding.
easier,
I'm
right?
kidding. You know what? Malbecs, Grenache, the really light Pinot Noirs. I love a really nice Sauvignon Blanc.
Wow. Okay. I did not know this about you. And I also
Oh my
am a
gosh.
lover of wine. I actually used to live in Argentina, and
Oh,
I Malbec is like a love language for me, for sure.
it is.
Um, and and it, oh gosh, I could talk about wine
Another
all.
show.
Yeah, right? Well, I know, I'm so happy that I asked you that. So, oh, TJ Mercer just said, he's like, wow, I just joined at the right time. TJ, we have been talking about this amazing acronym that Gwen created. It's called LOVE. It's for leadership, ownership, values, and effort in the workplace, in HR. And of course, you probably just joined when we were talking about wine. So, for the others on here, I think that was a pretty good um, synopsis of what we've talked about. Rolla said that he's starting to enjoy his wines too. Uh,
Yay.
and Joanne, thank you. She did get your choices acronym on here correctly. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you about HR and thinking about all the stuff that we've talked about, from leadership and ownership to values and efforts, because we want to talk about the human side of HR, what advice would you give is really struggling to connect on that human level?
Be vulnerable.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. So
Yeah.
explain, please.
For me, it kind of goes to wine as well. Certain varietals.
Oh no, did somebody call?
I'm sorry?
Your video just went off.
Oh,
there we go. You're back. Don't worry.
sorry.
It's okay.
Certain varietals, varietals are specific.
Okay.
They're authentic. And I think people should be authentic. And in order to be authentic, you have to be vulnerable. And so if a leader is having difficulty connecting, I would probably do some coaching with them to find out, what is that block? What's standing in the way of you and the other person? And it's going to take someone being humble, someone being vulnerable to expose that. And then it's not going to be something that you solve overnight, but it's something that you can help them identify, what fear that they are dealing with. and helping them to overcome that. And that's going to be with a new mindset.
Wow. Okay.
Everything starts in the mind.
No, I mean, I know that it has been very difficult to connect at the human level, and being in human resources and in HR and talent acquisition, because we're experiencing a different life right now, and it's the
Exactly.
way it is. And I talked about having to be very intentional and taking a lot more time. But I never really thought about that. I think you're incredibly right. You have to be very vulnerable and in a leadership position, and you
Yeah.
have to be authentic. If I just was calling or texting employees that are struggling, or that I really want to connect with, just to do it, just because it was on my calendar, like,
Right.
hi, how are you? It's very robotic and it's very not
Yeah.
real. It's not a human level connection. It's just, I'm like marking a box basically.
Right.
But being vulnerable and being authentic in that, I am trying to make a human connection with this individual right now, because we're at some type of impasse, we're at some type of loss of communication, or we're not getting projects done, or performance is not where it's supposed to be. As a leader, I wouldn't have thought of the first word being be vulnerable with that person, but I think that that's just fantastic advice, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. So, and one of the we'll start wrapping up here soon, but you offer coaching and leadership on just-in-time leadership. Can you describe to us or explain what just-in-time leadership is?
Well, it's kind of like just-in-time inventory, that you have on the shelf. I mean, you don't have 50 rolls of toilet paper,
Well,
maybe
you hope you do.
yeah,
Right?
maybe you have 25, but you have a system in place to where that it's always going to be something there.
Okay.
So you don't run out. For me, for just in time would be for organizations maybe that has a leader who may go out, they go out unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
And they need, leadership like right now. We don't have time to, do this long 6-month search. I come in and I can help, kind of fill the gap, the HR leadership gap for people. The last assignment that I was on was in California, and the leader decided, she was going to retire, and they wanted to take their time with finding a new person to fill that role, and they didn't want to do it, in 30 days or less. And so they knew that they had to have somebody come in and provide that, longer term leadership. And I was there for about, almost a year to help them with that.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, after I left, so did the new leader.
Oh,
but
no.
I couldn't go, I was on to another assignment, so I wasn't able to go back. But yeah.
I mean, I think it's such a different type of experience in HR. It's such a, a different type of career. You talk to a lot of people, and you had the traditional HR career. You were with one organization for over 20 years in HR. And, sometimes I feel like we get pigeonholed into like, okay, this is where you start. You start as an HR coordinator or this, and then you move into an HR business partner. And then then you can move it up here, and then senior HR business partner. And then you can be, a lead and a manager, and maybe move into a VP position at some point in time. And there's like very few positions within department. And so I think it's really neat that you have this type of a position that you basically, I feel like you created for yourself, right? Like you created this organization, your consulting group, and you offer it to organizations because you saw the need there.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Do you work with any type of organizations, or do you mostly work in healthcare?
The assignments that I've had are pretty much in healthcare. I've kind of grown up in healthcare, so that's usually the people that know me, in terms of networking, that will reach out to me for different assignments. But I'm not opposed, and that's what I even said, recently, is that I want to see how it is in other industries. A part of me said, maybe get into not politics but government. But then, then you hear these stories about how governments are, slow to move. And it's like, I need a fast paced kind of an innovative environment. But the way I look at it is like, if that's the way governments operate, and if I could go in there and change that, that's
Mhm.
exciting for me.
That would be
So
incredible.
I'm open to looking at other industries as well.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
I mean, it's really cool to know, and I think that for people that are watching that are in HR thinking about there are other positions in HR that do exist,
right,
that you don't have to necessarily go through the 5 years of this, the 6 years of this, you know, the progression. There are different career paths within HR.
right, right.
So how about this? If your job right now, I know you're in just in time leadership type of role, being an interim
Interim, right.
leader. Um, so if your job gave you a surprise 3-day all paid break to like rest and recuperate or vacation or whatever, what would you do with those 3 days?
I would probably spend them in a nice vineyard.
Yeah, where at in the US or international? And pretend like there's no travel restrictions. Where would you spend it?
I would go to Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I would go
exciting.
to Australia. Want to learn a little bit more about their wine and their wine making techniques.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
that's probably where I would go.
have you done are you doing the like the West set or the West set? The
WSET.
yes.
I am not. At one time, if you looked at my goals book, you would see in there that I wrote that I will be a master sommelier.
Really?
Yeah, and that takes, and I don't know how many women master sommeliers there are in the world right now, but I know it's a very, very small number.
Right, okay.
What I have done is I've achieved my wine certification through UC Irvine in California.
Oh,
So I do have
fun.
that, but I have not continued with
And
any additional schooling after that.
is that just because life changes and goals change and you had to be more flexible, or is that still something like in your retirement life will you seek to become a master sommelier, or is that something that you've kind of let pass at this time?
I think I let it go. There's a couple of different things on different shows on Netflix that takes you through the life of a master sommelier.
Uh-huh.
And it's exciting, but it's like, yeah, do I really want to do that?
A lot
I
of
mean, I
work.
love drinking the wine and doing all that, but to sit down with 5 glasses in front of you and be able to say, this Cabernet is from, Rioja, and this one here is from Napa. And, no, no.
You just want to be on the enjoyment side, and I
I want to enjoy it. I
completely.
want to learn about it. I want to know about the people that pick the grapes, the winemaker, why he, put it in barrels for, 12 months versus 16 months. I mean, I want to know all the intricacies behind the winemaking and enjoy the wine, but not to, sit there and have a test about, where these different wines came from.
You literally
So,
just said, like, without saying it, that you want to know about the human side of wine. You said
yay!
you are man, you are incredible. Like, you are just a ball of energy and amazingness and so much knowledge. And I really encourage you to like seek out a place to give more information about like your amazing acronyms that are super helpful and write a book on the human side of wine.
Yes.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
you're just amazing. So, before we end, Gwen, if somebody is watching and they want to reach out to you, they want to know more information about your just-in-time leadership or about HR consulting or more just in general on the human part of HR, how should they reach out to you?
I would say the easiest thing is LinkedIn. Go on my
Okay,
LinkedIn profile.
it's here and it's in the
Okay.
post. And you're an open LinkedIn person. You'll connect with people.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
it has been such a pleasure to have you here today. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it, and I thank you for sharing everything that you explained and and the knowledge that you bring to this space. And I think that your style of HR is hopefully something that people will emulate because I think it's very valuable.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on
Yes.
your show. And anytime that I can, help somebody, I'm here for them. I have
Wonderful.
a very soft spot for people that want to get into human resources. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
today there is just so many different things you can do in the world. And for
Yes.
someone to want to be in human resources, I mean, I think that says a lot. So if there's anybody
Special
out
people,
there,
for sure.
yeah, if there's anybody out there that's starting out that, wants, just to talk, I'm your person.
Oh,
I'm
that's so
happy to do it.
kind.
Happy to do it.
That's so kind. Well,
Yeah.
yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I really appreciate it. And I will see all of you guys next week on Talent Tuesday Live with Leah. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Have a
See you
wonderful
later.
Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we just stay on for just a second because then Jonathan will take down, the live stream. And Rollis isn't on right now. He's on the other side. Oh,